Welcome to Why I Left, a podcast that explores the Great Resignation. I'm your host, Brian Akar. Join me as I chronicle real stories from real people about the reasons they decided to leave their jobs during the pandemic and what has happened since. Hello, and thanks for tuning into this episode of Why I Left. In today's episode, I chat with Melissa Deely. Melissa is a health coach and integrative mind-body health practitioner. She specializes in personalized wellness packages that focus on rebalancing the physical, mental, and emotional body by tapping into the power of your unconscious mind so you're free to achieve your health and life goals. Now, I loved hearing about her work, and I hope you all enjoy this impactful episode. Now, let's go check it out. All right. Welcome back. So our guest today is Melissa Deely. Melissa became a health coach so she could help others. Now, she's recognized the importance of diet, lifestyle choices, and detoxing in our health journeys and is sharing her knowledge far and wide. So now, as a part of our series on mental health, I wanted her to bring her perspective and how she supports others on their wellness journey. Now, she's also a part of the podcast tribe, and she hosts her own show called Don't Wait for Your Wakeup Call, which is available wherever you get your podcasts. So hi, Melissa. Thanks for joining me today.
Hi, Brian. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. So now, before we get into some of your work, tell us a little bit about, your background and your upbringing.
Well, I had a very blessed upbringing. I was actually born in Sydney, Australia. And at the tender age of 6 years old, literally on my birthday, my family uprooted and we moved to Tokyo, Japan because of my dad's job. And he worked for Encyclopedia Britannica and the head office for Australasia was Tokyo. So I then lived in Japan for the next 10 years before moving back to Australia to finish high school and go to university and go out and get a commerce degree. And that commerce degree then led me into accounting in the hotel business. And because of my Japanese language, that led me into sales in the hotel business because by now I was living in Whistler, Canada, where I still am to this day. And it was the heyday of Japanese tourists coming to Whistler. So I was using my language involved in sales, and I actually spent 24 years in the hotel industry, moving up to national sales, working from home and for our head office. And one day, big fish came along and bought little fish. And I was no longer needed. And in that moment, I knew that I was never working for someone else again. And that whatever I did next had to be more of service to the planet and humanity. And that I had no idea what it was going to be. But I was open to being guided. And I was most definitely guided into health coaching through the health of my two daughters who were teenagers at the time. My oldest daughter got a concussion in her first grade 12 soccer game of the season. And I wasn't working full time. And I'd actually recently found a company that specialized in brain supplementation. And I thought that was interesting because I knew that I use my brain 24/7, but I didn't know that I could do more for the health of my brain. And so I started learning about this. And then my daughter gets a concussion, right? Things happen for a reason. So this was nutrition for the brain to optimize brain function, brain energy, etc., oxygenation flow through the brain. So I knew it was going to be a good thing for helping with her concussion recovery, but I was also taking her to all of her appointments with the experts to help her recovery because just sending her to an appointment and then having her come home and tell me what she needed to do in between the appointments, because remember, the healing is happening in between the appointments. She couldn't remember what they had told her because she had a concussion. So I was going with her and guiding her healing journey. And 2 months after that, I was driving to Vancouver and I got a phone call from the high school that my daughter, who was in grade 8, had a suspected concussion from gym class. And in that moment, I looked out the windshield of my vehicle up at the heavens across the ocean and went, really? This is how you show me my path? Please stop taking out my children. So now I had 2 very different concussions, 2 sets of appointments to go to, and was supporting both of them with excellent nutrition for the brain. Great news, they both fully recovered. And I found my path because I realized people need more support on their healing journeys. I was invited to work in a holistic clinic helping other people recover from concussions. There's many concussion experts in this town, but I was really the only one taking the nutritional approach, and people needed more support. but I couldn't get insurance because I didn't have any qualifications. So that's when I decided to go back to school. And I called a friend and said, "You're a life coach. I need a certification. I've been thinking about that in the back of my mind. Where did you do your training?" And he said, "You don't need to be a life coach. You need to be a health coach." And that was the second gift from above through my friend, because I'd never even heard that term before. But it resonated so strongly with me. Life coach had been bouncing around in my head at this point for probably a year and not landed. But health coach landed in that second. And I started searching health coaching schools, and I literally started with an intake within 10 days of that phone call. And I have never looked back. And I absolutely love this work. And I've continued to build on my certifications and training, because I truly believe that we can really help people get out of this state of chronic illness that the world, that's the epidemic in the world today, is chronic illness. And it doesn't have to be that way. We can create a body that is inhospitable to disease. We just need to learn how. And it is those lifestyle factors you mentioned earlier: stress, nutrition, sleep, exercise, etc. And when we know what we can do and how empowered we can be in our health, we can make very different choices. We're just making the choices today based on history, what's told to us on the television, and based on a lack of education, which is why I also have my podcast, because I want to provide the education to people, because when we know more, we can make different choices.
No, absolutely. So clearly, definitely, your passion, you're passionate about this topic, and you talked a little bit about, how you moved from the sales industry into this wellness industry. One of the things I noticed is that, you really focus on integrative mind body practice, right? And so, kind of what led you to focus on that, and explain what that is to you.
So, what led me to focus on that was, initially as a health coach, I had a certain set of tools to be able to help people in their health journey. And a lot of that focus was on weight loss, because let's face it, we have a lot of people that are overweight, that are obese in today's world. They don't want to be. They've tried every diet under the sun, and yet they're not successful. And even working with them as a coach, some people could be successful and others couldn't be. And I started asking why. What's getting in the way? And what I realized is several things. There's physical aspects getting in the way, for instance, hormonal imbalances and a sluggish thyroid, gut bacterial overgrowth or candida overgrowth. These are factors that can impact our weight. And when we rebalance the body, the weight can just come off easily. But there's also the other factors of emotional toxicity, mental toxicity, that are stored in our body. Our body stores everything in its cells. Our unconscious mind stores every event in our life, every interaction with another human being, without judgment, in a file cabinet inside our brain, right? So it's remembering everything. And if we have had traumatic experiences, even if you don't consciously consider them traumatic, they can still be buried deep down inside our body. We push our emotions down. We've been taught to push our emotions down. Let's face it. Boys are told don't cry. Girls are told suck it up, be a big girl. All of this, don't show our emotions. And so we learn to squash it all down. And this causes a level of toxicity in our body that later in life can cause issues with being overweight, etc., among other diseases. And so I realized that it's not enough just to address the physical body. We have to also address the mental and the emotional bodies. And as I continued my training through becoming an integrative health practitioner and being able to work with functional medicine lab tests to look for those physical balances, I continued on into the mind-body side of my integrative work, because I wanted people to have lasting results. We don't do all this hard work to end up back where we were 6 months ago. And so many people, unfortunately, are on that kind of yo-yo dieting roller coaster. It'll work for a while and then it doesn't. And then they give up. And then a few years later, they might try again and it works for a while and then it doesn't. And it's because of this mind-body connection. We have to address all three for truly lasting results. And any symptoms that are showing up in our physical body have already moved through our spiritual, our mental, and our emotional bodies. So we can clean up the physical, but if we don't clean up the mental, spiritual, and emotional, we really will just end up right back where we were in a certain amount of time down the path.
Yeah, no, I love that. That everything is connected, right?
Everything is
Absolutely everything.
connected.
And so one of the things that, look, this is a part of our mental health series, but, the show got its origins, because of the pandemic. And so what I'd
Right.
like to do is really take you back to that time, right? March of 2020.
Hmm.
And so talk a little bit about how the pandemic affected you and how it affected your practice.
So, because I had the tools, I wasn't impacted by the pandemic as much as many other people were. There was a lot of fear. So, what I was doing was I actually created a community on Facebook and I did daily meditations because everybody's nervous systems were just jacked into fight or flight. Nobody knew what was going on. Everyone was terrified. I'm going to get it and I'm going to die because that's what the media was telling us. And I was instead asking people to calm and to turn off the media because driving that fear does nothing for your mental, emotional, or physical health. It's damaging it. It's wreaking havoc with your immune system, your sleep, stress. High stress weakens the immune system. We know that. So by turning off the media, people could actually find time in their day to calm, and they could come to my little 10-minute meditation, and then I would do some teaching around that. And so it allowed me to build some community and to support a lot of people, not even just within my local community, but elsewhere, because I was doing this on Zoom, and have them be able to have a better perspective about what was going on and just take time to breathe and calm. And I said, if you want to know what's going on in the world, you can still read the news, because when you're reading it, it's just one of your senses that's taking in the information. It's not the television news where you're getting bombarded by the dramatic music as well
Yes. Yes.
as what's being told to you, right? So there's your vision and your hearings involved, and they know that, and they want you to watch the news because that's how they sell their advertising. And they know that your brain is charged with keeping you safe and it's looking for danger. So that dramatic, scary music and all the fear sucks your brain in because your brain's like, oh, I have to pay attention to this so I can keep you safe. And that puts you into that state of chronic fight or flight. But the body was never meant to be in that state chronically. And that's where, when we live there, it does cause disease in the body. And in fact, 90% of all doctor's visits are due to stress, and 65% of all disease are due to stress. So we have to manage the stress. So that's how I responded to it. I was concerned at first, and then as we started to go through and I started to understand who are the people being impacted by this. They're the people with multiple comorbidities. They're the elderly. They were dying. Yes, it was very sad. It was tragic. However, I started to realize the greater population isn't at that high risk of that initial wave of it going through. I started looking at how viruses function as well, that they don't want to kill their hosts. They want to, continue to propagate. But as they do, they tend to become more virulent in the sense that you can contact the virus more easily, but it's less harmful. It weakens, right? And so that's how over time, as we went through these phases, it became more like a common cold or a flu. That's normal behavior for a virus, right? And we've had viruses in our life since the beginning of time. So I just tried to really support other people. But what I did for myself as well was also make sure that I was calming myself and making sure I was doing what I was preaching, because that's something that I am a big believer in. I'm not going to tell someone to do something I'm not doing. So I bought myself a paddleboard because everything shut down. The gym shut down. My yoga studio shut down. I actually went out and bought myself a paddleboard. Even the parks were shut down, but I noticed you could walk through the park and get out on the water. So for the last 3 years, I have absolutely been enjoying paddleboarding. And that was a huge, bonus for me. And that's my Zen time, is getting out on the lake. I also started doing yoga on my back deck, which was a wonderful thing to be out in nature and doing yoga. And as sometimes I had the little squirrels in the trees firing pine cones down at me, which was pretty funny. And I could hear the birds chirping. And that was just a wonderful, calming way to enjoy my yoga, because of course, being in nature is also very calming on the body. And in terms of my business, in many ways, it helped my business in the sense that I was working on Zoom with my clients pre-pandemic. However, as a result of the pandemic, everybody started being on Zoom and even doing their doctor's appointments on Zoom. And so people were just much more open to the fact that they could work with me on Zoom, and that became normal. And I also offer functional medicine lab testing, and that gets mailed to people's homes. And people really appreciated that because they didn't want to have to go to a clinic where sick people were and risk contracting an illness if they could just stay in the comfort of their home to do their lab testing and mail it back to the lab. So that's how it impacted me. I have to say that I don't want to say that it was positive because there was a lot of death and that was tragic and a lot of people have been affected very badly, but there is a silver lining to everything in some way. And so I feel like there were silver linings through this for me.
Yeah. And what were some of the things that, you really started to learn during this time?
I really started to learn, really see the impact of stress and how quickly we can get into that state of fight or flight and that fear, and how that fear can drive decisions that aren't necessarily the best decisions for us. And when we can step out of that place of stress and go inside, which is when we slow down and we calm, that we can actually be making better decisions. But it's very hard to do that in that moment of extreme fear unless you already have the tools to help your body calm. And so when I work with clients, those are the tools that I help give them.
Oh, that's great. And that's actually a great segue into, so you own a company called Your Guided Health Journey. And so
Correct.
tell us a little bit about that company and its focus.
So, Your Guided Health Journey is literally named because of the guiding that I had to give my children on their healing journey and realizing that people needed more guidance on their healing journey. When we are unwell, we are trying to figure out how we can heal. And when we're trying to do it all by ourselves, we are in a stress state because, we're maybe going to Dr. Google, reading up on symptoms, not sure if what we're doing is right. We're not feeling great. We're run down, et cetera, et cetera. And we're stressed out, trying to figure it all out on our own. Or maybe we've gone to the doctor and the doctor's done all the lab tests and then said, we don't know what's wrong with you, or there's nothing wrong with you. And there's something wrong with you. And you are your own best doctor from the perspective that you've lived in your body your whole life. And so if there's something wrong with you, listen to that, get a second opinion, find somebody who can help you discover what's going on in your body. The lab tests I run are different to what your mainstream medical doctor runs. Those lab tests are great. Everybody should run them every year. Having more data about your body is important because we can get early warning signs. The ones I run are very different. I don't diagnose. I don't cure. I'm not a doctor. What I'm looking for are the imbalances in the body, the toxicities in the body, where the body's deficient. And our body is very deficient in today's world because of high stress, poor sleep, poor nutrition, and because of depleted soils. Even if we're doing the best job we can to get whole food, organic food, and get good nutrients into our body, it's harder than ever because of our nutrient depleted soils. So we need to supplement. And high stress has us burn through our minerals, burning through our vitamins. And if we're not getting those back in, the body becomes more and more depleted. We get more and more out of balance. And then if we're inflamed as well because of, again, the stress, poor sleep, poor nutrition, that's when our body will start to turn on disease. And because it's so depleted, the immune system is no longer able to fight that off. So what I do is I look for all of those deficiencies, toxicities, etc., to then support your body in coming back into balance, at which point it will heal itself. And so that's the guiding of that healing journey, is I hold your hand every step of the way. So you don't have to figure it out on your own. You can literally relax into the process and be guided. And when you're in that relaxed state, that's when the body will heal. The body does not heal in a stressed out state.
Definitely. And one of the things I noticed is that, and I wanted to give you a stat first, but I saw that you do like this liver detox, right?
Yes.
And I was doing some research after, we got connected on LinkedIn, and I wanted to read you something, right? And so it says, according to the Cleveland Clinic, about 1 in 10 Americans, which is about 30 million in total, have some type of liver disease. and about 5.5 million people in the US have chronic liver disease or cirrhosis. Now, we talk about toxicities in the body. You have this 21-day liver detox that you offer in your practice. And so thinking about that and hearing that stat, what are the top 3 reasons that people should detox the liver as an example of getting rid of some of those things?
Well, that stat alone is the top reason why people should be doing liver detoxes.
Yeah.
Our liver is charged with keeping our body pure and clean, and it has a big job. It cleanses our blood every 6 minutes as just one of its jobs. But it has over 500 chemical reactions in the body in this process of keeping it clean. And one of those is to get the toxins out. And it does this in 2 phases. The second phase is where it has to turn the toxins to being water soluble so we can actually excrete them through our bowels, our urine, our sweat, and our breath. Very specific nutrients are needed for that process to happen. And those nutrients have been absolutely depleted from our soil systems. So our liver is struggling to do its job to get these toxins out. But on top of that, we've had 144,000 man-made chemicals introduced into our world since World War II. So 80 years, right? The human body doesn't evolve that quickly. And so it's just this deluge. Think of it as being this trash can, and all these toxins are coming into our body. It's just overflowing now. And the liver can't keep up. It's overburdened and undernourished by those depleted soil systems. So our liver is very smart. It doesn't want those toxins to go into our bloodstream, but it also can't get them out. So it stores them in our fat closets in order to try and protect them from our bloodstream and having them going all around our body every 6 minutes, right? Very smart. However, where are our fat closets? Our brain is largely made up of fat and water. In women, our breasts. That's in people that aren't overweight. And look at all the Alzheimer's, dementia, Parkinson's, MS, and other neurological disorders that are out there in today's world. And look at all the breast cancer that's out there in today's world, right? We don't want these toxins stored in our body. I know I don't. We need to get them out, right?
Right.
And then if people are overweight, then they have more fat closets to store more toxins in, but that's not necessarily a good thing because then we're just storing more and more. And then when we start to lose weight, if we haven't detoxed, now we're just dumping all of those toxins back into our bloodstream anyway. We might be happy we're losing the weight, but we're very toxic in the process. In addition to all of that, we also have all of our personal care products. And the average woman puts on over 266 toxins on her skin in the morning before she goes to work, with all of the different things that she uses, from her makeup to her perfumes to her moisturizers to her shampoos and face washes and all of that. The stuff you buy at Walmart, Walgreens, whatever your local grocery stores are, drugstores, has so many toxic ingredients in it. And when you put them on your skin, there's no liver to filter it. It goes directly into your bloodstream. And guess how long that takes?
How long?
26 seconds.
26. Oh, wow.
Into your bloodstream.
That's how long it takes to get into the bloodstream?
Yes. From when you put something on your skin.
Oh, wow.
So yes, companies do safety testing, but it's not really, because what they're doing is testing one ingredient maybe 1 or 2 times, and then coming up and saying it's generally regarded as safe. But they're not testing that ingredient plus this one, 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 plus the stuff in your food and the air and the water. How is that impacting the human body? That test has never been done. We are the test, and we're failing, because look at all the chronic illness we have in the world today. And by chronic illness, I'm talking about type 2 diabetes, heart disease, obesity, autoimmune diseases, leaky gut, and Alzheimer's, dementia is a form of chronic illness. Some cancers are a form of chronic illness. These are all lifestyle diseases. These are all diseases that people can come back from when they know how, when we remove the toxins from the body, when we support the deficiencies and bring the body back into balance. It can heal itself. But that's not what we're taught. We're taught, go to the doctor and they'll make you better. And they give you a drug and they tell you have to take that drug for the rest of your life. But what happens then is very often is that's not what the body wanted. The body gave you a symptom because the body wanted you to do something differently, but it didn't want you to start taking a chemical drug. And so then it comes up with another symptom to try to alert you that it wants you to do something differently. And you go back to the doctor, and then they give you another drug to mask that symptom. That's what they're taught.
Yeah,
That's
it's
what they're
just a
taught.
cycle.
Exactly. It's the doctors are trying to do the best they can for you, and our acute care system is fabulous. But our medical system for coping with chronic illness is not, because chronic illness is relatively new, and medical schools and the medical system take a very long time to adjust. So new science that comes out today is not taught in medical school for at least 20 years, because it takes that long to get through the process. And these chronic illnesses are new because it's only since World War II that we've had all of these toxins. But if you look at Ayurvedic medicine in India, they still practice detoxing to this day. If you look at Latin American cultures, they still practice detoxing to this day. If you look at China, Asian cultures, traditional Chinese medicine, they still practice detoxing to this day. Where's all the chronic illness in the world?
Typically in North America,
Exactly,
United
the
States.
Western
Yeah.
world. It's not
Yeah,
in these
Western.
countries that are still practicing detoxing. And yet we haven't been taught to detox. We've been told if you have a shower every day and you wash your outer body, that's enough for good health and good hygiene. And we're completely forgetting about our inner body. And yet it's our inner body, the state that we create in our inner body, that dictates our health outcomes. And that's the science of epigenetics, which is also new science. And that science is incredibly empowering. And that's why the work that I do is so beneficial for people, because this science proves that it works. And it's basically saying that only 5 to 10% of all diseases are truly genetic, which means 90 to 95% are not. That 90 to 95% of diseases that you might be predisposed to are impacted by all the lifestyle factors, which means you have a choice. You have a choice to create a body that is inhospitable to disease. Yes, you have some cells in your body genetically that predispose you to something, but you don't have to turn on the switch that makes that disease come out and play. You just need to learn how to create that body that is inhospitable to disease. And a critical piece of that is supporting your liver. And we do that with liver detoxification. And I truly believe if I could share this widely enough and get the whole Western world detoxing, we simply wouldn't have the degree of chronic illness that we have in the world today. And I love guiding people through this program, because at the end of it, they've got all these, it's a reset for the body. So they'll tell me I'm sleeping better, I've got more mental clarity, my aches and pains are gone, I have more energy, all of these things. But the one that I really love to hear is I don't remember ever feeling this good.
And that type of impact on someone's mental health, obviously the physical health, we're talking about the internal, all of that. But, we talked about earlier about how it's all connected, this chain, right?
Yeah.
And so when you lack that physical health, it impacts you up
Absolutely.
top. And
Absolutely.
so that's huge. That's huge, And so it's great. It's great. Like, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, there's a huge connection between the gut and the brain.
Yeah.
Right? So that gut-brain connection. If our gut is unhappy, out of balance, which poor sleep and high stress cause that right off the bat, it can't produce our feel-good neurotransmitters to the degree that it should be able to. 90% of serotonin is made in the gut. But if the gut's out of balance and not happy, it can't produce it. So then you go to the doctor saying, I'm not feeling great, I'm really unhappy all the time. They put you on a medication. They don't ask about your diet. They don't ask about the health of your gut, et cetera, your stress, your sleep. But they should be, because really when we heal the gut, then we get the body back to making serotonin on its own. You don't need these chemical concoctions of serotonin to support you. And that's what we want to do, is we want to bring the body back into balance so it can do what it's meant to do. And we can absolutely do that. And the reality is a huge portion of the population today does have gut issues. And there's additional reasons for that as well. And that is that we have a whole generation, several generations of women that were told that bottle feeding is best. It's more convenient. Dad can do it too. Just bottle feed. It's the same as breast milk. But we now know that it isn't. And that in breast milk, There was probiotics to feed the healthy bacteria in your gut as a new baby, to set your gut flora up for good health. And all those bottle-fed babies missed that. And again, it was the food industry trying to sell formula to women and telling them it was better when it really wasn't. And another piece of that is doctors, once we could do cesarean section births, OBGYNs were like, well, I'm just going to schedule these women in because then I don't have to get called out in the middle of the night. Fair enough. Except that the baby passing through the vaginal canal gets all of the good bacteria and microbes from mom's vaginal canal. That's the start of building their own microbiome and healthy gut. And if we just pluck you out of the womb and you don't pass through that, you don't get that. So people that are in their 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s today, many of them were C-section and bottle fed. So they weren't set up for a healthy microbiome as a baby through no fault of their own or no fault of their mothers. People were just doing what they thought to be true and to be right. But science now shows that that was a mistake. So now we're dealing with all these gut issues that people need to address and can address. And when we address the gut, we can also help with the mental health aspect of people's being.
And that's a great point, right? And so, and I love the point around, look, it's obviously no fault of their own, the mothers and that type of thing. But we're now, when people start to learn that, can they change their gut microbiome?
Yes. That's the beautiful thing about the human body, is that it can heal. We just have to create the environment for it to be able to heal, right?
Got it.
And that's where getting to the root cause of what's going on is so important, which is where the lab testing comes in so that we can understand that and where they're at, and then provide a protocol specifically for them based on their lab tests. And then we also support the mental and the emotional body with whatever is going on there as well. And now people know this, that if they have to have a C-section, which sometimes it's necessary to save the life of the mom or the baby, that you can actually still swab the baby with mom's microbes, because now we know how important that is. We didn't know that 15, 60 years ago. The science wasn't there, right? So it's not to say we should never do C-sections. They are needed. We shouldn't be doing them based on the convenience of the doctor's schedule, but when they're needed, we can swab baby to give baby that good start. And wherever possible, breastfeeding is always best. When we start to think we know better than nature, that's when we screw things up, right? And Mother Nature's given us everything we need. And yes, there are times when for some women they can't breastfeed. And so again, formula is important to supplement that and support that baby. But we know all of this now, and if we're doing that, then we can also be supporting baby with some healthy gut support in their formula to ensure that they're getting that probiotic to feed the bacteria that's growing in their belly to set them up for a healthy immune system and a healthy gut for the rest of their life.
No, that makes sense. And now, we mentioned earlier about, your show, Don't Wait for Your Wake-Up Call, right? And so tell us a little bit about, the show, and what are some themes our listeners can expect to hear?
Yes, thank you. So I started the show in March of 2021. And the idea behind the show is to bring health education to the general public in really easy, understandable format. A lot of what I'm sharing today, people don't know because it hasn't been taught through public health or our education system. I had to go back to school to learn it. And when I first got back to school and was learning this, I'm like, I'm in my 40s. Why don't I know this about my own body? And then I realized, because I was busy, doing a commerce degree and then building my career and being a mom and a wife and raising my kids. And so if I didn't know this, how many other people were in the same boat and didn't know it as well? And so that's the idea behind the show, is to bring you this information so that you can access it easily without having to go back to school. And so in the first 2 years, I did do a lot of themes throughout the show. I've done themes on sleep and hormones and sugar, and I can't even think of all the themes because there's been so many of them. I know my theme for this month, December, is actually, December starts tomorrow, but peace. I know this show doesn't come out till later. So yes, I have many, many themes, and people can go back and scroll through the different episodes to just find ones that resonate with them. Until now, I've been doing 2 teaching shows a month and then 2 interviews a month with either other practitioners, people that have healed themselves, sharing hope and ways for people to be able to find the healing that they need. because I may not be the answer for every single person, but I want people to know that I can be a resource for them and share other practitioners and other ways of healing with them. And in addition to that, I do 3 little health hacks a week, which are like 3-4 minute episodes, which are just little tiny tips. And again, there's a theme for each week that guide people through whatever the topic is that I'm talking about. Recently, I've been talking about heavy metals in the body and what that's doing to the body and the toxicity of that. I've also been talking about minerals because that's something that people don't really know much about. I know I didn't, and yet they're so important for our body's ability to be able to function. So I just do a little episode on each mineral, why it's important, how you get it through food, and what symptoms of deficiency may be, so that people can be aware and look at some of these things when they're, having symptoms, and that they're not just going to the doctor and the doctor saying, oh, take this medication, because maybe they don't need that medication. Maybe they're just deficient in this mineral or that mineral, and we can run lab testing to see exactly where they're deficient and support that for them.
No, I like that. And what was great is how you talked a little bit earlier about how you had your own wake up call, right? To stop taking health for granted, right? Driving down the highway there. And I'll share with you, I've learned a lot throughout this conversation. It's almost like a bit of a wake up call for myself. The 26-second thing really, really got me, right? And so what I love that you mentioned is how this all ties into, our gut health and our mental health and all of these things really tying together. And, it got me thinking about, well, one, I'm glad that there is hope, right? That we can change the gut microbiome and all of those things. But, when you look at our food source supplies and some of these things, what are some ways that, we could ensure that we're taking in the right types of food on a daily, weekly basis?
Right. Well, that's also a huge topic we could probably talk about for a whole hour.
True.
But a couple of things that I want to say there is, first of all, because our microbiomes are as different as our fingerprints, the way we need to eat to fuel our body is individual to each and every one of us. And so that's what I teach when I'm working with my clients, is finding the right way to eat for your unique body. We don't just follow the latest fad diet. Yes, that might work for some people. And yes, your best friend might be telling you how well she did on that diet. And then you try it and it doesn't work for you and you beat yourself up because your microbiome is different, right? So it's about finding what's right for you. But there are a couple of generic ways that you can think about eating that's right for everybody. And first of all, that's 50% of your plate should be fruits and vegetables, mostly vegetables. And then another 25% of your plate is going to be starches. And you're going to have protein in there, and you're going to have some good quality fat. So 7 to 9 cups per day is a good estimation of what that 50% of your fruit and vegetables looks like. And this is for an adult. And people might be like, 7 to 9 cups. Oh my God, that's so much. But it's not that hard to do. I have a smoothie right here that I start my day with every day. And so it's really easy to get 2 to 3 cups in the morning. Just put it into a smoothie. And your body loves smoothies. Your digestive system loves them because the blender's done all the work. I literally will eat that with a spoon. I throw some raspberries in on top, which gets my salivary enzymes going. So it's turning on my digestive system. I'm not just drinking it. A lot of the work's been done by the blender. So your digestive system doesn't have to use as much energy to break it down, which gives me more energy for my mental function, my physical function at the start of my day. Every time you put food in your mouth, it's taking 30% of your energy. So think about, what are you putting in? And is that more than 30%? Or are you actually depleting your energy level by putting that in? If you're eating a quick sugar treat, you might feel energy momentarily, quickly, but it doesn't last, right? So then you can have, another 2 to 3 cups at lunch. Maybe it's a salad at lunch. And then at dinner, 2 to 3 cups in whatever you haven't had. So that's an easy way to get that whole food in. Again, it's from nature. It's what we should be eating. Now people are saying, should I be buying organic? Absolutely yes, if you can. Not everybody can. I know it's more expensive, but look at your budget. What are you spending money on? Are you spending money on a lot of processed foods that are nutrient deplete? So therefore you're eating more times in a day. You're having more snacks because those meals aren't lasting you to the next meal window. Because if you look at that budget and what you're spending on food, you may actually find that if you start buying whole food and cooking from scratch, you know what's in the food, that you actually spend less. Because now you're having breakfast, lunch, maybe a small afternoon snack, and dinner, because you're getting enough nutrients in each meal to last you until the next meal. So that's one thing to look at. And so I find that often people are spending more than they think they really are on processed food, and that they can actually choose organic whole food and have it not cost very much more, if it costs more at all. But if that's still a stretch for you, then I want you to look at the, what are they called? The Environmental Working Group, EWG.org, their list of it used to be the Dirty Dozen, and now it's the Dirty 15 and the Clean 15. So the Dirty 15 are the berries, fruits, etc., and vegetables that you need to buy organic every single time, because you simply can't wash the pesticides off them. Whereas the Clean 15 are the ones that you can buy that aren't organic, because the pesticides don't get through into the skin and you're peeling off the skin and not eating it. So an example of that would be a pineapple, for instance, right? That you don't have to buy an organic pineapple because you're peeling off that skin and the pesticides and toxins aren't getting into the flesh that you're eating. So that's another way to consider it. And then we've been told low fat, no fat. That's a big fallacy based on flawed logic. The brain, as I said earlier, is made up of fat and water. It needs good fat for fuel. And so understanding what good fat is, like your olive oils, your avocados, avocado oil, coconut oil, these are good quality fats that you want to be using and getting into your diet. Wild fatty fish, high in omega-3s, and again, giving you those good quality oils versus what we've been sold for so long, corn oil, soy oil, etc., sunflower oil. These are very high in omega-6s. They're not good quality oils. They increase our inflammation levels. And when our inflammation levels get too high, that's when our switch to disease starts to get turned on, right? So making sure you're having good quality fats is really important. And then the proteins, what type of protein is right for you? Some people do well and need animal protein to have good energy. And that's great. There's no judgment around what your body needs. And yet in society, we judge each other. And we should not be doing that, because there's other people that do very well on plant-based proteins. Great. If you want to be vegan, be vegan. But don't tell the people that need animal protein that they're bad because they're eating animal protein. Their body needs it. And so when I work with clients, I run them through a quick 4-day energy experiment so people can find out what type of protein does their body need. And then they know. And so that's what I mean by finding the right way to eat for your unique body and not just following the latest fad diet, because they're too generic and they don't work.
I like that. And a part of the show I like to have our guests talk about is just really giving some advice. And so would love for you to share, some advice for others who may be looking to holistically improve their health. But let's say they haven't had their own wake up call just yet, right? So what would you suggest for them to kind of get on this track?
Well, my first thing is literally don't wait for your wake up call, right? It's never too soon to start looking after your health. And I want to ask you is, what does your health mean to you? To me, it's my greatest asset. If I don't have my health, I can't build my business. I can't be a mom to my kids. I can't be a wife to my husband. I can't live the life that I really want to live. And here's another scary stat for you, because I've done my own research lately. The average North American right now is spending 10 years in a nursing home at the end of their life. 10 years. That is not quality of life. They say we're living longer. We're not. We are dying slower. So not only are you losing that time, what's the emotional stress on your family members that are having to come and visit you in the nursing home during that time? And what if you don't even remember who they are? How hard is that on them? So that's all time and energy and emotions. The cost of that right now is $108,000 a year on average. And by 2030, it's forecast to be $141,000 a year. But if you're in your 30s or 40s right now, you're not going into a nursing home by 2030. And when you're ready to go into a nursing home, how much is it going to be? It could be $200,000 a year, which means you need $2 million to fund dying slower. Do you want that? Is that what you dream of when you dream of retirement and you dream of your life and you look to where you want to be and grandkids and travel? Nobody dreams of, I can't wait to go into the nursing home, right? And look at the cost of that. And yet people don't want to invest in their health today. I would rather invest in my health today so that I don't ever have to go into that nursing home. Or if I do, it's for a very short amount of time. And investing in my health today is going to cost me way less than that $1 million, $1.5 million, $2 million that I'm looking at down the road. We invest in our house, we take out the trash, we vacuum, we clean, we repair, we renovate. We invest in our car. We fill it up with gas. We put the right fuel in the car. We take it in for services as soon as that engine light comes on. We need to treat our body the same way and think of our symptoms as an engine light that are asking us to do something differently. And then try to get to the root cause. And the people that are looking for root cause with you are the people in holistic medicine. And so that's where you want to turn. And I'm happy to be a resource for people. I'm actually putting together a program where I'm working with 9 other practitioners in the one program. And will everybody I work with need all 9? No. But everybody I work with will need more than just my support. And it gives you the resources of people that you can turn to without you having to spend your own time and money and energy to find them. And so I just want to ask you, what is your health worth to you? And let you know that it is never too soon to start investing in your number one asset. Treat your health the way you treat your home and your car, and you don't have to spend time in that nursing home. And my grandmother is the person that really had me see that, because she lived to be 101 years old, and she lived in her own home, caring for herself right to the end until she died in her sleep. And that's what I want for my life. And that's what I want for anybody else who wants to come on this journey with me. And I compared my life to her life and realized I was way more toxic after having grown up in Tokyo, Japan in the height of the 70s and manufacturing plants spewing out toxins. So yes, I have good genes, but is that enough? And I realized it wasn't. And I had to clear out the toxins from my body in order to create a body that is inhospitable to disease. And that's what I do for myself. And it's what I teach, because we can do it. And I want to change the way things are out there in the world today. We have a broken medical system, unfortunately. It's a sick care system. Let's get back to healthcare. And when we look at healthcare, that's where it takes preventative and proactive action. And that's a choice every person can make. What do you want for your future?
No, definitely. And, so during this, Mental Health Awareness Month and BIPOC Mental Health Month, how can we continue to amplify, this message about some of the resources that are available in this space, right? Gut health and all of the interconnectivity of the body.
Keep sharing my message, listen to my podcast, share that with people, listen to the work that you're doing, Brian. And there's other practitioners out there that are sharing this same message in the holistic field. Some of the people that I follow and my mentor is Dr. Stephen Cabral, but also Dr. Mark Hyman. There's many, many people out there that are talking in this realm of holistic health and the gut-brain connection and being able to address the mental health through addressing the physical health. And people can look for those people and connect with them. And once you find one person and you start following them and reading their content, they're going to introduce you to more people and more people. And you can go down a huge rabbit hole. And at some point you can just decide, okay, I have enough and I'm just going to follow these people. And that's what I've done. And that's where a lot of my learning has come from, and my deeper studying and which courses I want to take is simply doing that.
No, that's great. Well, Melissa, I just want to thank you for taking some time to speak with me today. I enjoyed learning about your practice. I learned a ton, about some of the space, some of the things that you discussed. The toxicity piece is something that, you talk about going down the rabbit hole. There's a rabbit hole that I've gone down. So I am a subscriber to your show. So I look forward to continuing to follow your work, and would love for you to share where our listeners can find and support you as well.
Sure. So my website is simply yourguidedhealthjourney.com, and people can go there, check out my offerings, etc. My email address is melissa@yourguidedhealthjourney.com. If you are not sure if I'm somebody that I can help you or not, you're welcome to email me. There's also a contact button on my website, or simply book a discovery call straight from my website. And I'm happy to have a conversation with you, find out where you're at, what your health goals are, and if I'm the right person to help you. And if I'm not, I have a whole team of people behind me that I can certainly refer you to if you would like that.
No, absolutely. Well, all right. Well, look, that'll do it for today's episode. Again, I want to thank Melissa Deely for joining us. Her information will be in the show notes. And I hope you all have a great week. We'll see you next time. Look, mental health is super important. And I think it's important that we kind of recognize the connections between, what's happening in the gut, what's happening in the mind, body, and soul, and all of that. And so, Melissa, thank you again for coming on the show.
It's absolutely my pleasure. Thank you for having me. It's such an important conversation, and I'm thrilled to be able to get this message out.
The Great Resignation, people leaving their jobs in droves. There's a lot of buzz happening in the job market of late. Now, did you or someone you know leave your job during the pandemic and want to share your story? We've been having some really good conversations in this space, so if you're interested, I'd love to have you join the program. If so, here's how you can do it. First, you can email us at hello@whyiLeft.co. That's hello@whyiLeft.co. Or visit us online at whyiLeft.co. That's whyiLeft.co. Look forward to having you join the conversation. Thanks again for listening to Why I Left. Be sure to join us next time for more stories from the Great Resignation. Visit us at www.whyiLeft.co. That's whyiLeft.co. And subscribe to the show on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.